Hey there, Internet! Welcome to the Hard on Gear channel, where I discuss and review my used and abused knives and gear, so that you know what is or isn't worth spending your hard-earned money on. Esee Izula II from Esee Knives. Probably one of the very, if not the very best, fixed blade EDC a person could choose. These are going to be very thorough, comprehensive reviews that go over pretty much anything you should want to know in these knife reviews. No one review could ever serve all of my purposes, so that's what I'm trying to do with these. I'm going to try and put all the meaty stuff right in the first half of it, so if you're in a rush, stick around for the first half. I'll get all the specs, the sizes, and the general usage and all that stuff out of the way, and then I'll save some of the hypothetical, fun self-defense and survival stuff at the end if you are into that kind of stuff. So in my search the last few months for my new EDC knives, I wanted a new EDC fixed blade, a new EDC folding knife, and a EDC multi-tool that I could slip in my pocket without having to put it on my hip. Check out my video where I talk about why I selected these three tools and the idea of why I chose 3 different knives for my EDC carry, when for the last 8 years, I, for the most part, just carried this Recon one, aside from the odd fixed blade I threw on my hip for work when need be. So the Esee Izula II is 6 3/4 inches, 6.75 inches, just shy of 7 inches, which makes it smaller than most folding knives, or at least a lot of small folding knives that people EDC when they're fully extended. Not quite as big as, say, the Manix 2, definitely not as big as the Recon 1, but of course you can't fold it in half, so it goes in this here sheath. So the blade length is 2.875 with a cutting edge of 2.625. Really nice measurements there. So you've got a little over 2.5 inches of cutting edge there, which isn't a ton. If you're out doing jobs that require a larger knife or tool, you're probably going to be carrying those with you, I would imagine. Although this knife certainly could substitute for many of those tasks. For the price, the Esee Izula II in American dollars is going to run you, for the knife itself, 70-80 bucks with the kit. Probably $100 total, maybe a little bit more, give or take 10 bucks. And if you go with the Esee Izula I, a little shorter, no micarta handles, it's going to cost you probably about 10-20 bucks less than that. But for you American folks, under $100 for a knife like this with all the kit and the belt and all that stuff. That's the other thing to mention. The knife itself, without the kit, only comes with the knife and the sheath. I believe you can get it just the knife without the sheath, but the kit also gives you that really nice sturdy belt clip, which is super high quality. Well worth the price alone for the kit. In Canadian dollars, you can tack about 20-30 bucks onto that, so I paid $150 for this Esee Izula II with the kit, taxes in, and all that shit from Amazon. You can get the knife itself when it's available for about 130 bucks, and the Esee Izula I in Canadian dollars, you're going to pay about 115 for the Izula I or the Candiru, with the mounting options and the sheath and all that stuff. The Izula II is only available in limited options compared to the Izula I. Currently, all the Izula II models come in either a desert tan micarta handle or like an OD green. There's not very much variation in that yet, but you can get the blade itself in black, oxide black, gray, OD green, and desert tan. I think that's it for now. The Esee Izula II always comes with the micarta scales and is just a bit shorter than the Esee Izula, so I just like to take that little bottom lanyard ring off and then imagine the lanyard ring is just where this bottom screw is. That's about the size of the Izula I. Now the Esee Izula I you can get in all kinds of different colors, so if you're into color scheming your gear, then that could be an option for you. So take that into consideration when you're looking for which one of these you're going to select. There's also many knives from different brands who do something similar to the skeletonized handle, light backpacker type fixed blade. The Esee models, of course, are similar, the slightly smaller Esee Izula I and the Candiru. You've also got your Becker Escobar and Gerber Ghost Strike. I think pretty much every brand has something along the lines of this skeletonized light backpacker type fixed blade. But they don't all have Esee's warranty. They're not all made of 1095 carbon steel. They don't all have micarta handles, so those are things I took into consideration. This is the first micarta I've ever owned. Heard lots of great stuff about it. People brag it up all the time. Some people only choose micarta when they're choosing their knives. But this has been super cool. First experience with me, micarta, very awesome. I love how it's already starting to wear down and make this knife a little more unique. Makes the contrast to the desert tan quite a bit stronger. And it feels awesome in hand, especially when wet. It gets extremely grippy, which is very nice because I'm often out in the woods either sweating or in inclement weather. For blade thickness behind the edge, you're looking at 0.16 inches. The base of the spine measures out to about 1/8 of an inch, which for a blade under 7 inches overall makes this a pretty thick, sturdy, stubby, robust little tool that you shouldn't really be able to break or fold in half. And if you did happen to fold this in half, then you could just send it back to Esee with a nice little email saying that you dropped it in the Death Star trash compactor, and it's now folded in half. And they'll send you a new one, no questions asked. They should have built their knives better. Shame on them, which is a great warranty, and they're a great company, and they're awesome. The other thing to say about the warranty is that it is a lifetime and transferable warranty. 3 or 4 owners on this knife, the warranty still counts. Pretty cool. But the warranty does not cover things like the sheath or any other equipment that comes with it. That's all stuff that's expected to be broken over time. The coating will wear off. The handles aren't technically warranted themselves, but the knife, the piece of steel itself, is under that completely awesome warranty. Check out Esee and what they do with their Randall's Adventure and all the different training and rescue and wilderness survival and all the crazy stuff that Esee does with their knives, testing them out in the real world in real situations. They trust these knives with their lives and the lives of all the people that they're working with and around. That makes me feel pretty confident in purchasing this and bringing it out as a tool that, while it's not going to be able to do everything I need a knife to do, if I only had this knife, it's really going to do just about anything I need to keep me alive or safe. The blade steel, like I said before, is 1095 carbon steel. Very tough, very durable. Not the longest edge retention, but certainly longer than most steels out there. Definitely longer than most stainless, and you're going to get a fair amount of use out of this edge. I've actually got quite a bit of experience with these high carbon steels. That is the K-Bar 1211 in 1095, just like the Esee Izula II and all the other Esee knives for the most part, and the K-Bar large heavy Bowie, which is in 1085 carbon steel, but very similar. I've had that for about 8 years. I've had that for about 4 years. 1085, 1095, that range of carbon steel holds up excellent. It's also pretty darn easy to sharpen in the field. So I did say earlier, it is hard. It's tough. It's not that hard. Its hardness, I don't know where it sits on the scale, maybe like a 6 out of 10 or something like that, but it's not the hardest to sharpen, and it's not going to be brittle or chip or anything like that on you. I've sharpened this thing once so far, just a touch up really, and I've stropped it when need be, but I can't really say I've gave this thing a full profiling yet because I just haven't used it enough, and it holds the edge well enough that 2 months isn't enough for me to wear it down. But it was very hair popping sharp when I first got it. Don't believe you're gonna pop many hairs off it now, but I wonder if I give it a, oh, actually there were a couple hairs off there. Let's just give it a quick, still not great, but it's popping some hairs off. I'm sure if I actually took some time to properly sharpen it, you'd see some better performance. But nonetheless, I mean, for a woods knife, a small, thick blade like this, it can still get a very hair-popping edge. Of course, being that it is a high carbon steel, it is not stainless, and I don't do the best job of oiling and maintaining my knives all the time. So you can see here on the spine where I've sharpened it off, there is some surface rust. I'll have that off in no time, and I won't ever let that rust build up to the point where it starts to pit or become a serious issue. But I live in a salty environment next to a lot of water, and I'm constantly getting my knives wet, so I don't always do the best job of oiling them and or keeping them dry, but I will try and get better at that. The long and short of that is just about anybody who's ever used 1095 will tell you it is absolutely good to go for outdoor bush use. This has got a nice coating on here. I can't remember exactly what this powdered coating is, but it's pretty durable, pretty solid. I scraped a little bit too much off on some spots when I was doing that filing job, but for the most part it's holding up, although you can see this knife hasn't seen a lot of super hard use. But if you check out other people's older, well-used Esee Izula knives, that seems to hold up. So this is a drop point. I prefer a spear point, but if I had to not have the spear point, drop point's my number 2 pick. Very good for most tasks, and you can get quite precise if you're doing some fine woodwork. Just to show you the stuff you're going to see on the blade itself, you've got Esee Knives USA, and just above that you're going to see the Esee Izula ant. That is the bullet ant that has the highest pain rating of anything on the pain scale. Is that correct? Something along those lines. The only other thing on this blade is I'm assuming that's a production number. And Rowan. Heat treat. I don't know much about heat treating, and I don't know much about metallurgy. I'm not going to get into it because I'd be talking out of my ass, but I do know that this Rowan fellow heat treats all of Esee's stuff, at least recently, and it is solid. Apparently he does a great job because their stuff holds up to pretty much anything. I can't get over how well this thing carries. It's even appendix carry, which I've never done before and I thought would be a little more of a pain. I don't like things digging into my hips, but I really don't notice this on my belt too much. If my shirt hikes up and I manage to get this belt sort of in a spot where eventually the skin's exposed, I have pinched myself a couple of times, but whatever. To me, that's just a little thing to keep you awake. I'll live. While it is a great belt or appendix or scout carry, it wasn't originally designed, at least the Izula I was originally designed to be a neck knife. So what you're seeing here is a slim modified sheath, which I just can slip in my pocket as a slip, but this is also going to be a very nice neck knife option if I ever want to do that. I do a lot of long driving, so I'm in the car for about an hour each way to work, and then I drive multiple hours for work some days. So I'm a lot of the time in the car, a lot of the time in the office, and then a decent amount of time in the field. So in any case, I have not had any issues with this sheath. It carries very nice. The weight of the handle tends to make this sag handle down, but I like that quite a bit because it makes it very accessible and available. It protrudes a little bit, it can catch some eyes, but overall, very easy to grab because it's always just off your belt line. If I'm wearing this like this, or possibly if you were wearing it scout carry, you could do the same thing, I'm sure. But appendix carry, left hand, always available. Or if my left hand were tied up or I was carrying something, anything like that, then I can grab with my right hand and reverse draw. And if I have to switch around, I can switch around. The only other way I've carried it so far has been with this small sheath as a pocket slip. So I haven't used any of the other lashing options or clip options for this yet. But this has been great, and this is super convenient. I've had this in my pocket for multiple hours all day, sitting, standing, walking around, in my car, out of my car, and I honest to God forgot it was there. Just as invisible as actually probably more invisible than my pocket knife, because I'm always in the front of my pants, like grabbing, say, I'm always grabbing for like my phone or my wallet or something that's in the front of my pants, therefore coming in close contact with my folding knife, or at least like the pocket clip. With this in my back left pocket, very available to me if I need it, at least with my left hand, and I really don't notice it. But seriously, if any of you know a fixed blade that you think carries better than this, please let me know down in the comments, because I'm not sure. I looked around quite a bit, and yeah, you could say the Izula I or the Candiru carries easier because it's smaller. But yeah, within the relative size range of this, tell me, is there a knife that carries better that you can do more with? The deploy and the retention from the sheath is great. I have gotten a little bit of play in this already out of the first 2 months, just because I see there are, if you can, 2 little plastic nubs. Those 2 nubs on the inside here have worn down a little bit on this first sheath, because I've been doing a lot of practice drawing and sheathing just to build my dexterity and to make sure that I know exactly where the points of contact are for this, so I don't accidentally stab myself in the hand or in the gut or in the crotch or anywhere else terrible. I don't want to stick this knife other than in the sheath. And yeah, if I pop that one off, yeah, that one's got a lot more snap to it. The first few times pulling this in and out of either of these sheaths, you gotta really come onto it in order to get that on or off. So it's out of the factory, ridiculously good, and if you take care of it and properly sheath your knife, I'm sure it's going to last you a long time. I am very aggressive with my stuff, and I do dumb shit with it, so it's going to wear out quicker. As far as the blade geometry and performance, I've used this knife so far for general EDC tasks, such as cutting paper, boxes, tape, all that stuff. I've also used it out in the woods a little bit. I've probably thrown it at a few trees just to see how it throws, which it's pretty light and small, so it doesn't throw well. Probably shouldn't throw it anyway. Just trying to put that Izula to the test a little bit and just make sure I beat on it before I can actually give it a little bit of reviewing. Throwing knives is not the way to test your knives out, though, by the way. Don't do what I do. Actually, I do believe Esee's warranty says something along the lines of, if you are the type of idiot who is going to throw a non-throwing knife at stuff, please do not buy our knives. So, sorry, Esee. But I've used this for cutting some branches off some sticks for a hot dog roaster. I've used it for breaking down some cardboard, but I haven't put it through any extensive testing yet, so I really can't speak too much to the performance over time as if I were building a shelter or making something out of wood or doing something where eventually I would feel the hot spots if they're there. But really, this is very comfortable. The blade is basically everything that's not fitting in your hand, so you know exactly what's cutting, you know exactly what you're digging into, and it's really, for the size of this thing, you can get a lot done, but the small size does make it a little more precise. This is not a slicey blade. It's not designed to be a slicey blade. It's pretty thick along the blade stock for how small this knife is. It's meant to be a flat grind bush beater. If I've got this on me, then there's a pretty damn good chance I've also got my Mannix 2 on me, and this is, while it is a flat grind, this is Spyderco's typical slicey as heck flat grind. So if I need something slicey done, I may just keep that in its sheath and haul out the Mannix 2, which is still needing to be broken a little bit more, but this has been used for anything I need to really do some fine slicey work with. I want to be a little more precise. But if I want to tear the crap out of anything, this Izula II will do the job. Won't dive too much more into the ergos and the comfort of use and all that. It's a very, very comfortable knife. It fits in my hand perfectly. I've got just the lower end of a large size hand. So if you've got medium hands, you could probably get away with the Izula I without going to this larger size. If you've got large hands, you're absolutely good to go with this knife no matter what. The only bit of jimping on this knife is right here on the back, just where your thumb goes at the base of the spine, and it's perfect. It's not aggressive at all. It's literally just enough for you to get some friction on there, and it gives you a little more control and comfort if you want to press through some stuff. So I have like cleaved off a few branches for weenie roasters, and it's pretty comfortable doing that. But for the larger branches, it's just not quite large enough. So in your hand, you can just feel that the weight of this knife is not enough. You're pretty much going to be using all of your own wrist and arm strength. If you've got to push through something, you can't rely on this knife quite the same as you can with the weight of something heavier like this. But for precision, I'm going to do some carving with this. Like I said, a spear point is better for me. I prefer it because if I want to do precise carving, I can know exactly where that tip is via the control of my thumb, like the Mannix 2, which very, very precise to the tip because of that spear point. Same even for the Recon 1, which isn't as precise and is a little more large, but I get more precise work with that spear point. Not much, and it is negligible, and it's probably, again, subjective to whatever your preferences are for knives and blade types and shapes. But for me, this is pretty good, but I'd prefer this to be in a spear point, which I could have got the Kanduru, but it's just a little smaller than what I wanted. So for the use and abuse rating, I can't give this a rating like I would for something a little more tried and tested like my Recon 1, which is certainly a little higher on that scale, because I have put it to the test and I found out what it can do and what it can't. But for now, I just got to sit this at a 3 because I really, for what I think this is capable of, I've done things with this that I would not do with a more delicate knife that might have pushed it over the edge. But for what this should be able to hold up to, I haven't tested it that hard yet. We're just going to give it a 3 for my use and abuse rating. The aesthetics and general presentation of this knife are pretty awesome. Subjective, I'm sure, to whatever you're into for knives, but this is something that I see, and I see a work knife when I see this. It makes me want to take it out and beat on a tree. However, as I'm sure you've noticed, it's not that big. So as far as presentation goes, when you get this thing in your hand, it is smaller than it looks. I don't think there's a way around that. It's just kind of the nature of when you watch these videos. When I watched all those reviews, I've seen different people handle it. I kind of knew what to expect, and I certainly wasn't expecting it to be a big knife, but it did just, this is the first fixed blade I've had that's this small and compact, and it surprised me a little bit, that's all. But presentation-wise, you could haul this out almost anywhere. As I've touched on in previous videos, the big reason I wanted this is because I wanted to be able to EDC a fixed blade, carry it on a regular basis, and not get the stares that I get when I carry something that big or larger into a public place. So if you're talking about which one's the scarier knife or the more socially acceptable knife, there is no comparison. There's no conversation really to be had there. Field reliability, dependability, 14 out of 10. Well, I'll give it a pretty damn good rating, but it's certainly going to hold up and last you longer than almost any other knife that you're going to be able to carry. Certainly stronger than any folder that you're going to find, hands down. Even getting into some of that triad lock stuff, the Cold Steel Recon 1, I mean, this is great. Although, you know, after a while, eventually, there's a pivot in there, and this is a blade with part of the blade with the pivot going through it and a handle. Separate piece, snap. It could happen eventually. You're not going to snap that in half, and if you do, Esee's going to hook you up with a brand new one. Yeah, maintenance cleaning wise, there's really nothing to do with this knife. If you want to clean it and make it look more pretty, go ahead. Other than that, just slap a little bit of oil on the blade surface that you sharpened, and if you've done what I've done, which is file the coating off the spine, then you're going to want to put a little oil, or else you're going to get some rust like that. I'm sure over time we'll see some wear, but every now and then I might just take a file to that to clean it up a little bit, slap some oil on it, as well as whenever I touch this up and sharpen it. It'll be rusty now and then, but overall I'm not too concerned about it because I'll be using this on a regular basis, and I'll be seeing it every day, so I should see if there's any major rust starting to show up. But the best way to avoid that, of course, is to take care of your gear better than I do almost always. So I didn't do an unboxing for this because I bought this knife sort of in the early stages as I was planning this channel out. You can just know that when I opened these, I was very impressed, very excited, and I enjoy everything that I've gotten out of these so far. So there's the booklet and some other stuff in here. The booklet's actually quite nice. You've got your 3 different variations there, the Kanduru, the Izula, and the Izula II. This is a fairly universal booklet Give you a chance to snap an image of that. So not only does it show you different lashing options and different ways that you can connect this knife to your person or gear, it also goes into some detail about how to paracord wrap the handles, which is a very common thing for these knives if you want to lighten them up or lower the profile. Or if you're just using the Izula 1 or the Candiru, adding the paracord handle can get a little bit more of a grip for you if you want to get full purchase on that knife. At some point in time, I'll either be getting a Candiru or an Izula 1, or I may just take the micarta scales off the Izula 2 and give that a paracord wrap, and I'll videotape that to show you how I go about that process. The knife also comes with this little Esee card, 2 of them actually. I'll just hold that here in case anyone wants to read that. And there's the front of it if that tickles your fancy. On the back of the box, you've got, again, some more survival tips and some ground navigation stuff, which if you don't know anything about ground nav, it's going to be pretty tough to jump right into this. But if you're a little rusty and you need a refresher, this is going to be enough to hopefully jog your memory. Here's everything that comes in the kit. So you've got a little bit of paracord here, OD green, which is not, I wear a lot of black, so I try and keep my paracord black. There's this whistle and clip that you can hook up if that's your thing. So I did pay an extra 25 bucks or something like that Canadian to purchase another sheath. It was the same as this sheath minus the belt clip. I just shaved off the screw holes so I could slip it in my pocket. Very slim pocket slip or lanyard carry. But with this kit, you can lash it all kinds of ways. Between this clip and all the different things you can do with that, as well as these rings, hook the ring to the end of the sheath, loop it onto a backpack or something and have this dangling very free and ready if you needed it. There's all kinds of ways you could do it. I do, for the most part, prefer to carry this in this sheath appendix carry. But that's all the stuff that comes with this kit. It gives you some options, and if you wanted to mount it anywhere, on your gear, on your person, on some molly, whatever, you've got options. Weight. The Esee Izula, by the way, the scale is just about 0.1 off on the low end, so this is actually should be weighing about 3.2 ounces. And just to verify for you, the Mannix 2 should be about 5 ounces, 4.9. So yeah, 3.1, we're going to call it 3.2 ounces on this Esee Izula. Now with the fire steel that came with the Izula kit taped on here, I'm going to add a little extra weight than what you normally see, but for the extra weight, which is a few ounces, just to have that there for that 1% opportunity that I did need it, I don't mind having it on there. Altogether, with that sheath, my typical carry here, you're looking at, we'll call it 5.4 ounces to round that up. And so the other sheath, a lot lighter, only weighs, even with the paracord, yeah, essentially nothing, 0.5 of an ounce. That sheath, a little over 2 ounces. And last, if you want to see the Izula with that small sheath, it's, yeah, very light. Ambidexterity. This is a 100% ambidextrous knife. So this was originally separate from the belt clip. You get the sheath, you get the screws, and you get to mount it as you wish. I've got it the scout / appendix style carry, so you don't get the 4th hole because it doesn't line up, but 3 line up just fine. And if you want to go normal carry like this, you put the 4 holes in and you're good to go. Either way, ambidextrous. The sheath itself is not ambidextrous, so I guess technically, well, I said the knife is 100% ambidextrous. The sheath is only going in one way. Not a big issue because I'm pretty much going to have it oriented the same way. So yeah, for a left-handed fella, the only thing I could improve on this would be a fully ambidextrous sheath, but would it have the same detent? Would it sit in there as securely when I need it to stay in there? If it was ambidextrous, I don't know. Maybe it's just for size. If that were ambidextrous, you couldn't narrow it and taper it down towards the end like that. So hey, if I have to not have an ambidextrous sheath in order to have a more slim and comfortable carry, when this is supposed to be an EDC knife, I'd much rather trade that off. So then do we call this a Southpaw approved knife? I say yes we do. Damn right we do. This is as Southpaw approved as things get, just again shy of that sheath being fully ambidextrous. But the mounting options are ambidextrous and pretty much limitless, so you could get away with putting this wherever you want for whatever hand. Super Southpaw approved, awesome ambidextrous knife. Last couple things, we'll touch on the fun stuff, at least the fun stuff for me, which is the hypothetical what if kind of worst case scenario. Would I carry this in a defensive situation? While in Canada we're not allowed to defend ourselves against people, and I don't carry this for a self-defense tool or knife or anything like that you want to call it. I won't use the W word because this is not a weapon. This is a knife. But if I were in the woods and I got attacked by a coyote, or if while going through the street I were a victim to an urban coyote attack, in the grocery store, in Walmart, at the bank, you never know. Coyotes are shifty. They adapt. They could get anywheres. If I were in a situation and I had this appendix carry, I can draw it easily forward or reverse grip, and easily get into whatever sort of defensive things I need to against that wild animal. The ease of carry makes this a very good choice for that, because you shouldn't have any issue carrying this every day. If you're ever going to use something that's too large or too inconvenient for you to carry, when you need it, it's not going to be there. So this is almost always in that same spot. For the sake of habit, especially these first few months as I get new to these knives, I'm putting this on my sweatpants, which is ridiculous. I don't need to carry this around the house, but I'm doing it for practice and to know how it carries on sweats, because some people probably wear sweats all the time depending on your job or your life. But I just wanted to know how this thing can carry 16 hours a day, same as the Manix 2, has been in my pocket pretty much nonstop for the last 2 months. Reflexively, I'm pretty damn quick to draw this. I practice quite a bit of my drawing and deployment and all that sort of stuff, and under different clothing in different environments. I try to do it after I've done workouts or got my heart rate up, and it's pretty accessible. Very easy to grab this handle and very easy to get back in the sheath, although the ease of deployment is much more important than ease of resheathing. Nice thing about Scout Carry is if my left hand were to ever get disabled, cut, tied up, for whatever reason, I can still grab it with my opposite hand and do what I need to do. Coyotes beware, the Esee Izula II has got your name on it. The other nice benefit self-defense wise for this, which doesn't get talked about too much, is the small blade length. A larger knife gets more range, which is really important self-defense wise, and you can get more done, more cutting surface. It's just more effective versus a small knife, one-on-one. But I'm not looking to knife fight. I'm also not looking to draw the eyes of the law, which in Canada will get me in trouble if I'm carrying a knife for self-defense. But if I need to draw this quickly, it's a short blade, so there's very little movement out of the sheath to get that out and into action. You've got a long blade and someone's got your arm jammed up, or you're in a car, or you're in a tight confined space. You can't get that sheath all the way out, and now you're struggling. If I ever did get jammed up against a wall or something and I did need to get this unsheathed, all I've got to do is get a good tight grip on that handle and then a little bit of a twist of the hips, and should be able to get that out and into action. So in saying that, I suppose you could say the only downside of this defensive-wise, for me at least, is the size of it. You could certainly get a bigger blade if you want it to be more effective. But this is not a primary self-defense weapon for me, nor a weapon at all. This is a tool, this is a EDC knife. If I ever had to use it in that situation, would it get the job done? Abso-freaking-lutely. Would a bigger knife be more devastating upon impact? For sure. If I got in a fight with someone carrying a katana on the street, I'm screwed. Is what it is. That's just the nature of fighting with weapons and getting in knife fights. So my recommendation to you is don't get in a knife fight. And while the sarcasm and satire might have been heavy and all that, in all honesty, there is really very seldom an opportunity where I think I would be deploying this work tool. And I've got my jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai amateur level to kind of back me up if I need to get out of a situation. If I ever had to draw something like this, I think it would really only be in that do or die situation where my life was basically going to be ended if I did not take steps to aggressively stop it from happening. And that might be to deploy something like this against an animal, because I'm just going to say again, officially, not ever going to pull this out on a person. If in any situation I had to, this would be the absolute last resort, because things have gotten bad and I'm now escalating the situation and we're not going back from that. And the very last thing before the final H.O.G rating is this an Apocalypse approved knife? And really, for almost anything, as the same as the defensive and all the other things we've talked about as far as this knife's capabilities, it's great. The only limitation on it is its size. Yeah, right? The only thing I could see you really needing on this that this does not have is an extra couple inches of blade length. You could go to a larger Esee for that, an Esee 3 or 4 or something, of course, if you needed that, and they make all kinds of variations, and it's very close to the same knife. They're very good at making a knife that is universally liked and usable by almost anybody, and then scaling it as their models, Esee 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever go up. So lots of options out there if you do need something bigger, and for a Apocalypse knife, you'd probably want to go with something larger like an Esee 3 or an Esee 4. Just my thoughts on it. I haven't used either of those knives. I don't own either of those knives, but I probably will in the future because Esee has left an incredible impression on me. So I've got fire, I can make shelter, I can do some defensive things in the end of the world hypothetical scenario that I'd have to. It's got just about everything you need. You could want it to be stainless, but if it was stainless, it wouldn't be as tough and as high carbon, so take your pick. But while I'm not expecting an apocalypse to happen, one thing I wanted to keep in mind when purchasing and selecting this knife and setting this knife up the way that I did is what if I was going about my day and, like many people in many different countries I've experienced over time, some crazy shit started to happen. Whether that's a riot happens right in front of me and I have to bail out of my car and go into the woods because I'm starting to get shit looked over on me. Whether it's because I am out in the woods and I have actually gotten lost, whether I'm at work or for whatever reason, and I do not know how to get my way back out to the road. This is going to get me hopefully through at least a night. This was really supposed to be one of those, if I could only have one knife for the rest of my life and it had to do everything for me, this is kind of what I was going for. This is supposed to be kind of my apocalypse knife. So this is pretty damn good rated for me. Again, with the exception that you could have something a little larger, but that apocalypse situation could involve concealment and not having a large knife on you. So this would be a lot easier to slip on my person somewheres, pretty much anywheres where I could just have that almost blend into my profile. Again, that's all fun, hypothetical stuff. That's very unlikely, but if you don't plan and talk about the worst case scenarios, what the hell are you going to do if they ever happen? Spoiler alert, you're probably going to panic a little bit. So for the final H.O.G rating of this knife, how hard on gear approved is this? How much abuse do I think I could get away with before this knife meets its limit? I really don't know yet. And for these early impression reviews, I can only really give you what I've done so far and what I can predict based on other knives I've used. This thing is going to be sitting on a 9 right now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to up that more in the future, but I don't think it's going to get any lower than that. Just based on the physical properties of this knife and what I've seen other videos and people been able to get away with. The warranty backing this thing up pretty much says that they have full faith that you can do just about anything to this knife and expect it to hold up to the test. This is something that's definitely going to be considered for the knife giveaway I'll be doing once this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button to help me get there so I can do that first knife giveaway. It's going to be some kind of a hard use approved fixed blade or folding knife like the Esee Izula II or like the Mannix II from Spyderco. Something within that price range of $100 to $200. So look for the updated reviews and field tests on this as I put this thing to use and find out exactly how much it can handle. But for now, feel free to share me any of your Esee stories, especially your Izula II stories and Izula ones. Let me know what you've done. If you've got any sweet pictures or videos or stories about what you've done and the limits you've found of this knife, I'd love to know. Send them along. They'll probably get shared on the channel. Send those along to the Hard On Gear Instagram, Hard On Gear channel, or send them to the Hard On Gear channel email, hardongearchannel@gmail.com. But that's it for now. The Esee Izula II, super awesome, super rugged. I can't wait to test this and beat the crap out of it. But for now, that is it for the Hard On Gear channel. Signing off.